All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I'm Is There No One Else? And in today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys today about why I have moved on from ESO, and I'm not really doing much ESO content anymore, and I'm mostly playing games like New World and Among Us. As you guys know, I have basically done mostly ESO related content on my channel. Like, I have over 700 videos. The vast majority of them are ESO related, and as of last October, I just stopped playing. And so I've provided feedback in other videos from other players in the game, their discontent that I've seen in my Discord, that I've seen on YouTube through the comment sections, but I've never really provided my own perspective and my own point of view as to why I've moved on from ESO and why I'm now playing like New World. And so that's what this video is. So before we dive into it, I know there's going to be comments. I know there's going to be people saying, oh, you're complaining, you're whining. This is your chance to get out. You don't have to watch this video. You don't have to waste your time to watch this. So this is just my perspective on where things are right now for that game. And we'll just do a little compare contrast between ESO and New World, because New World also is going through its own issues. And so, yeah, that's what this video is going to be. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully this answers some questions. So if you guys see me doing or not doing ESO content in the future, you know where it's coming from. So yeah, let's dive into it. The most important thing, let's talk about performance. ESO performance has been struggling for a while. 2019, they came out with their roadmap that 2020 was going to be the year of performance. We are now into 2023, and most platforms are still really, really bad. This time last year, PCNA actually got a hardware update, which did improve performance on PCNA for a short time. Lag started coming back last fall. And so we're over 3 years into after the performance updates, and there's still no sign of performance actually being improved. Now, they are overwriting the entire game code in the fall, which, you know, there is some reason for optimism there. I have a lot of pessimism that I'll provide later in this video, but we're just mostly talking about performance right now. Most platforms are in a bad spot. And so you're in a situation to where after hours, when people get off work, when they get off school and everything, and they hop on to play the game, if there's too many people playing, enjoying the game doesn't work. So Cyrodiil, there are times during primetime hours where the game just doesn't work. Now, if you guys hop on in the morning, if people hop on in the morning and they play, or they play late night, you know, they work nights, and so they can hop on after hours, you know, 1, 2, 3 a.m. US time, there will be less people on some of the Cyrodiil platform or some of the Cyrodiil servers, and so you'll actually be able to find fights that work. Those aren't the times I hop on. So for me, when I hop on, it's typically prime time, shortly after primetime hours, and it just doesn't work for me. Now, I could move on and I could go duel, or I could go play Battlegrounds, or I could go do Imperial City, but a lot of those things are just, you know, they're outdated. We haven't had a new map for Battlegrounds in 4 years now. Imperial City hasn't been reworked to a way that has brought people back. And so although these two areas do work, they do function very, very well, even when other parts of the game really struggle, these two areas have not been improved. They have not been worked upon. And Rich Lambert has made it clear that there will be no PvP updates until the performance improves. Now, even though these two areas improve and they could just do a quick like update and, you know, improve these game modes and everything, we're still stuck with 4 to 5 year old game modes. And at this point for me, because either there's no population like in Imperial City most of the time, or the game modes are really bad and the maps have been played for 4 years, like, I just have no interest in playing these anymore. It's the same thing as if you play like Call of Duty or Gears of War or whatever. If you play enough of the same map and the same game modes over and over again with no significant changes, it's time to play something else, right? And so for me, it's Cyrodiil or bust, and Cyrodiil or bust is very hit or miss. Now, New World doesn't have those issues. New World has their own servers, and because they have their own private like servers on a much smaller scale, there's less people in an area. Performance is a lot better. It's very, very minimal that I deal with honestly, when you compare ESO to New World, New World's performance is just so much better. I know some people say that there's issues with lag and everything, but it's just night and day, completely different levels of lag. I'm not dying because of lag. I'm dying because, I suck or I get out of position or whatever. And so that's actually quite nice. The issue with New World PvP is because the servers are small. Currently, OPRs only run until like midnight, 1 a.m. US standard time. So whatever server you're on, they run until about that time, and then everybody kind of hops off, and then that sort of PvP dies. Solo open world PvP in general is very hit or miss, depending on what faction you're on, but depending on what server you're on. So oftentimes, like 3v3s and OPRs can die rather quickly because at some point in time, like because your server side, the game just kind of dies down. So you don't have your 24/7 PvP like it is in ESO, but the New World time period lines up better with when I can actually play. And so I'm not playing past midnight anyways. And so for me, it's not a big deal. But that's supposed to be changing in the future. They will be doing multi-server OPR and 3v3s. So theoretically in the future, 24/7 OPR and 3v3s will exist on New World, which is exciting. I think that's really, really exciting. Now, that's the first thing. There's just, when I hop on, there's just a night and day difference for performance. Now, for you guys, if you have good performance in a game and you're enjoying the game, you should play it. I'm not saying like everybody should quit one game and play another game, but just we all play at different hours. and that's just the way it is. And so that's the most important one. This is honestly the most breaking one for me, is because when I do want to play, it's either too populated, and then I have to thread the needle between it being too populated to where the game doesn't work and it being populated enough to where I can find fights. And so the more and more it just dies off at night, the less often that happens, and then there's just less reason to be on. And so that's the biggest issue. Other issues are, I've been doing ESO content for years. I know the direction of this development team, and to me it seems like PvP direction for them is just like I said, they've just halted PvP direction. They don't have a direction for PvP. It's just basically in a wait and see mode. It's not really on their priority list right now because they're saying it's because of performance, but even before, like there's never been a priority for ESO PvP, which would normally be fine. But they just bounce back and forth between sets that heal for you or sets that do damage for you, and they just keep going. And the game has just gotten dumbed down significantly more over the years, especially after this new development team has been introduced. Cast times on ultimates, block being more buggy, reworking these things. The game just isn't as fluid as it used to be. And at some point, a lot of the fun of that, of combat, ESO combat, although it's been amazing over the years, it just starts to go out the window when your heavy attacks lag, when your skills lag, when you have positional desync, when all these things just don't work very well. Although the game, when it's working great, is still great, all these different bugs and stuff coming into play just makes the game function worse and feel worse to play, and it's not as rewarding and it's not as satisfying. Like dying because your block didn't work or because you're trying to dodge roll and the game wouldn't allow you to. And this is outside of performance. This is just, other bugs and things in the game that, it's getting worse and worse. And so the big deal breaker for me here was this last year. I noticed that performance is getting a little bit worse, but it was doable. I was still streaming, in October. And when the new patch came out, people were saying that block was broken. And so a core fundamental mechanic for ESO, block breaking, is just not something that works for me. Like as a PvP player, you need your core combat mechanics to work. And if I'm going to die because of a bug in the game, on top of performance issues, on top of questionable balance design, on top of all these other things, like that's always been my deal breaker. Like, oh, there's a game breaking bug where I'm just going to die due to BS and I'm going to get annoyed from it. Okay, well, I'm just going to wait until it gets fixed. And so you can go check my my forum post, but I posted something on my channel and I said, hey, block's broken. I do want to farm this gear for a build that I want to run, but I'm not going to play PvP until this gets fixed. would you like me to stream doing this, or would you rather have me play another game? And so people voted, and they said they would, my channel being an ESO channel, people voted en masse saying that they would rather see me play another game than farm, for PvP. So I was like, all right, well, that sounds good. So I'll stream another game, which I did. And I just decided to sit on the sidelines and wait until block got fixed. As you guys know now, in hindsight, it took 6 weeks or 7 weeks for them not to fix block, but them to revert it back to the previous issue that existed. So they still haven't, that I know of, fixed the block issue, but it was extremely problematic, and they just brought it back to the one that was a little bit less problematic. And it took them 6 weeks to do so. And so when you have all these other issues, weapon swapping and light attacks hanging and this positional desync and performance not working, and then they can't fix a bug like block for 6 weeks, to me, it leaves very little optimism that they're going to adjust things in the future. Now, I know people in the comment section are going to talk in the comment section below, and they're going to say, hey, Else, they're rewriting the code for the game. In the fall, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be amazing because they're rewriting it. It's going to go, and this is going to optimize everything, and the game's going to work perfectly. And yes, possibly that could happen. But if they can't fix block for 6 weeks, and they're rewriting millions and millions of lines of code, that leaves millions and millions of opportunities for the game to fail. And so that's where my optimism goes out the window. They could not identify this issue, and now you expect them to just be able to rewrite millions and millions of lines of code and the game to just work fluidly immediately after? I have my doubts. I have my doubts. And so I don't see a good direction for this game for the next year. Now, I could be wrong. Now, I very well could be wrong in this regard. But I'm not going to wait around and find out. I'm just going to sit on the sidelines, and I'm going to monitor the game and see what some of my other friends that are still playing ESO are going to say in this regard. And if they do rewrite the code in the fall and it does work out really well, then I'll come back. And I'll be more than happy to say, hey guys, I was wrong. They did a masterful job. My pessimism, although warranted, was wrong, and it was misplaced. And I would love to say that. I would love to say that in August or September that the game is working perfectly and they exceeded all expectations. But we're on year 3 of performance roadmaps. Past year 3 of the performance roadmap where performance improvements didn't happen. We just had a 6-week period where they couldn't fix block. I just have my doubts that they can get this stuff wrangled in. And I don't know if it's due to constraints from the game, from them just going into maintenance mode, or if it's just the game was written in a way and on a certain platform to where it's just way too buggy for them to manage it. Either way, I haven't seen a track record here to where I have hope for it to improve. Now, that's not to say New World's all great either. Obviously New World had their issues in the first year. They don't have the same, infinite immortality stuff there. They've gotten their hands on those things. And so, but the difference is if you paid attention to year 1 and you know everything that happened in year 1, you understand that New World started off in a very bad spot. It had all this hype and it tanked and it cratered, and justifiably so. It was a laggy, broken game with really long times to level out and max a character and all these sorts of things. But after 1 year, they changed so much and they made it so much better. The time to get to level 60 is so much less. It's so much less grinding. The maintenance to get into PvP is so much less. When I do PvP, I get rewarded good or relatively decent or competitive PvP gear. I stopped grinding on New World back in January. And all I do is I hop on and I do my gypsum to currently level to get shards, for the next patch. So when I am going to get new gear, I can just upgrade right away. That's the only reason I'm really doing PvE right now. Most of my PvP maintenance is from playing PvP. I get rewarded gold. The gold pays for my food. The gold pays for my potions, and I still have some left over. And so if all I want to do is PvP, I am allowed to do that on New World. And so which is great. And so the issue that New World has is they just don't have enough endgame content. They don't have enough 3v3 maps. They don't have enough OPR maps. The map dies off because people get bored because they complete all the content and they stop playing the game. When people stop playing the game, there's less people to fight because less players means that there's less players to PvP. And so people hop off more and more. That's their issue right now. But they made a big change in year one. I read the last PTR notes. I posted them on my channel a couple weeks ago. Big changes again. The direction of PvP is going in a good spot. And the best part about those patch notes was they were all good changes without just a mind-fuckingly stupid, broken set. Snake and Stars. Magic Recovery, Max Magicka, Weapon and Spell Damage. Applying a major or minor debuff to an enemy applies Star Venom to them for 6 seconds. Its effect can occur once every 12 seconds. Whenever an enemy with Star Venom is healed, they take 28/48 Oblivion damage up to once per second. An enemy can only... What the fuck, man? Why? Like that's been my standard for ESO patch notes is I'll read them and I'll be like, wow, 90% of this is good. 3 things are game breaking, and now we'll see if they're going to adjust them or not. Most of the changes are good, but the problem is if these 3 things go in, it's going to completely break the game and make it not fun and, unenjoyable. And so if they don't adjust these 3 things, then we have an unenjoyable PvP experience. The patch notes for New World were just good changes. Obviously, there's still broken things. Obviously, there's still, some mechanics that will need to be adjusted. Things will need to be tweaked. There are broken things in games all the time, but they haven't just incorporated a new broken thing. Like the most broken things right now in New World, from my experience, are like muskets and OPR, which got a huge adjustment. But muskets are only really broken like in OPR. Like they're not broken in 3v3s. They're not broken in duels. They're only broken in one aspect. It's not breaking across multiple mechanics where, if you want to do different dungeons or expeditions or whatever, musket is the best thing to use. It's just in one specific niche where it's very, very valuable. And so I think that's great. And so for me, it's when I look at the development teams, I feel like ESO and New World are on very similar tiers right now as like where their issues are in the game. They both have balance issues. They both have issues with the game and how they're approaching things. And this very well could be because I know one development team and I don't know the other one very well, but the body of work shown from the New World development team to me just looks better. And so I'd rather be in a game that's in a similar spot to ESO right now and play and, enjoy my time on it because it actually works and everything's functioning well, knowing that they're making good changes. And if they stop doing that, I'll just move on to another game. Then stick and hold out hope that a development team that hasn't made good changes, that constantly flip-flops, that constantly is struggling with dealing with bugs and things in the game, are somehow going to magically do a 180-degree switch 3 to 4 years later. Like, one, in my opinion, is settled, and the other one is shown over a small sample size a very good track record. Now, they'll have to keep doing it, of course, and there will be bad patches, but that's where I'm sitting at right now. And so I would just rather play New World. I'd rather not deal with lag and performance issues. I would rather not deal with the buggy aspects of the game of block not working or dodge roll not working or those sorts of things. I'd rather just hop on. And when I hop on, I have fights that, to me are fun. And now combat is subjective. I could dive into the combat and I'm not going to do this. Like, combat is an apples to oranges comparison. The combat for ESO is a lot of fun. I think the combat for New World is a lot of fun personally. If you don't like New World combat, then you're going to disagree with me, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I'm not going to talk and say, oh yeah, New World's better here from a combat. They're different. But what I do like is that New World rewards you and punishes you for making mistakes. So if I use one too many dodge rolls, I have a finite amount of dodge rolls in the game. And so if I dodge roll at the wrong time, I don't have it for when the other opponent's burst comes in. If I block too much in New World, I run out of stamina in the same way, and I can get punished and I can get killed in that way. Whereas in ESO, it's a lot more forgiving of those mistakes. And so that's been an aspect I've talked about on ESO for a while. I feel like they've dumbed down the game quite a bit. I feel like they've made the game a lot easier. And so it's not about your preferences at this point, like whether or not you like or dislike the combat, but how the combat rewards and punishes bad play reminds me of like 2016, 2017 ESO, where if I made a mistake, I got punished and rightly so. Whereas now I can wear sets like Mara's Balm. I can almost permablock. I can run Spell Wall. I can run high ulti gen with Oaken Soul. I can do these things, and I can just basically be forgiven for a lot of issues and a lot of mistakes that I make in the game. And if I stack enough health, nobody can 100 to 0 me. Whereas in New World, just about everybody in the game can be 100 to 0'd. It's a PvP game, and people die in PvP. And so that's my perspective. It's not about ESO, like New World's infinitely better in all these other regards, because it's not. Neither one of them are perfect games. This is just objectively me trying to look at things and trying to compare them. And so from my perspective right now, I'm going to mostly play New World while I'm enjoying it. And I really am. And I like the new upcoming patch changes, and I'm going to continue to play it as long as I'm enjoying it. And ESO, I'm personally in a wait and see mode. I am waiting to see what happens in the fall. If they overhaul the servers and they bring a lot of excitement back and the people come back to the servers and the game is working really smoothly, I will 100% come back. And so this isn't me saying like I'm done with ESO or ESO is garbage and New World is great. It's just from this perspective, I see New World heading up and I see ESO just flatlining or heading down, especially like if the fall comes and they still don't address performance at that point. I could see a lot of people that being the last straw. Like most players have already had their last straw. I could see the fall being the last straw for even more people. Like, wow, this was your last big thing to really improve the servers. If the servers still aren't going to work, I'm done. And as the population dies more and more, you'll have the same issue on ESO that you have in New World, where you get to a certain, in ESO already has that, depending on what Cyrodiil you're on, whether you're in Blackreach or Greyhost. Like Blackreach dies at a certain point of the night every single night because there's not enough people. That number is going to keep going down and down as less and less people play. And less people are going to play when there's less and less optimism as to things improving in the future. And so, yeah, that's my assessment. That's my point of view on where the games are right now, my perspective. And so I'll do the patch notes. I'll continue to do the patch notes. I'll provide my perspective on it for at least until I'll do the summer patch notes, and then I'll do the fall ones. And if the fall performance doesn't improve anything, I'll probably just be done with ESO for good. Like that's my last straw. Like I'm not playing right now, but if that doesn't improve it, I'll be done. And so, yeah. In the meantime, you guys now know where I stand on this. So if you see me not playing and not posting builds, but I'm reading patch notes, I want to come back. I want to come back. I want to play, but I'm not going to play with the game currently the way it is. So I'm just going to sit back and kind of monitor and provide my opinions for a lot of you guys who still follow and support my channel and still want to hear updates on things. So yeah, that's where I stand. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to comment in the comments section below. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.